understanding the impact of your final grades for the rest of the semester. What I'm showing you here is three separate grades for three separate students. What's interesting to notice is that all three of these students have a C total grade, a 72.3, each and every one of them. But how that 72.3% is calculated is very different for each student. Notice one student has extremely high homework and quiz grades, where the other one has a 72.3 homework and quiz grades, and test grades, and final grade. While the third student has very low homework grades, very low quiz grades, and pretty high test grades. These three students are very, very different, and what happens at the end of the semester will greatly impact them differently. Let me explain. Let's say you're the first type of student, student number 1. You have a 72.3. This is based on column averages. A homework average is what is used to calculate this grade here, as well as the average of the quizzes, the average of the test, and the final exam. It is not calculated on a total grade based on adding points each time. And you have to understand, let me explain. You have a 72.3 average and you think, well, if I get an 80 for the rest of all of my homework, my grade should go up. The reality is, no, your grade will go down. How come? Because right now you have a 95% homework average. If that homework average does not stay at 95%, your grade will go down. So it's very important that you know what your homework average is. Because if your homework average goes down, your grade goes down. Same with the quizzes. You have 1/3 of the quizzes left. So let's say your homework, the last 1/3 of your homework stays the same. Your grade is not impacted. Quizzes, you have a 90% quiz average. If that quiz average goes down, your grade goes down. Even though you have a 72.3 and you're thinking an 80 is higher than a 72.3, but your average goes down because your quiz average goes down. If your quiz average goes up, your grade goes up. Now, this is extremely important to recognize what type of student you are. So let's assume your quiz grade and your homework grades don't change. You have a third test left. Let's say you do really well on that third test. Now your test average has gone up, your total average has gone up. And let's say you do really well on the final, an 80. All of a sudden, keeping your quiz grade and your homework grade exactly the same, just getting an 80 on the final and the third test brings you up to a B average. Very important. So, let's go back. I'm going to delete this and put this back at a 61. This student's grade will go up if their test average goes over 61, not if the test average goes over 62.3. Even if they get a 72.3 on the test, your grade does not stay the same. It goes up. Very important. 73.8, let's say they get that on the final. Test doesn't stay the same, it goes up. Your final exam goes up as long as those categories go up. Let's look at the third type of person. 72.3 on this. This happens pretty much exactly like you would expect it. You get better than 72.3 on the homework, your grade goes up. Less than 72.3, grade goes down, and that's going to happen in every category. This is an extremely rare student where everything is the same score. More likely, you're either somewhat like the first student or somewhat like the third student. Third student a lot of times is in the most dangerous position because they don't understand where they're at. Let me explain. If you have an 84.4 test average and your final grade is a 72.3 and you're thinking you only need to have a 72.3 on the next test, might be surprised how huge of an impact that has on you. If you score a 72.3, your test grade goes down. And if you get that on the final, so you're thinking the last test and the final, all you need is a 72.3 to keep your grade on both. The reality is, if you do that on test 3 and the final, you're going to get a D in this class, which for most of you is a non-passing grade. Very important. Now, the nice thing is, if you have a very low homework average, let me delete this and put this back to an 84.4. If you have a very low homework average, you still have a third of the homework left. So if you were to do the homework at the expected level of 90% and do the rest of the quizzes at the expected level of 85%, this would greatly impact your total average. However, even though your average is now a C+, it's based on a test average of 84.4%, which means if you still score below 84.4%, your grade goes down. So if you are very bad on homework and quizzes and have very good test grades, you're going to have to really be careful with your test grades. You're going to have to keep that up. However, you can give yourself a little cushion with high homework and high quizzes. Let's say you brought your homework up and your final and test 3 were both 72.3. Your grade really won't be changed if and only if you really do well on the rest of your homework and the rest of your quizzes. So, student 1, low test grades, high homework and quiz grades, is in a very different position than student 3, low homework and high test grades. Again, your grade is based on category averages, not on individual test scores. The category for tests never changes. It is always going to be, I'm thinking 35% of your grade. Final exam will always be 25% of your grade. Be very careful with this.